Can we speculate and say it's alien?
Well,
Can we go there?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, just the fact, you know what I thought was really interesting? They use the word in this sort of ancient machine that decided what it needed to live inside of, which would be an entity made out of cells. And the cells would just keep passing the virus on.
It's interesting.
Crazy.
Ooh, it's an ancient intelligence.
If you think about it as like maybe it's this alien technology used to kind of keep our population at a, you know, we've had the plague, we've had like cholera, we've had all these like huge pandemics that swept across the world and wiped out swaths of thousands, millions of people.
But it also changed the genetic code of the people that did survive.
Interesting.
Because those people, they were able to pass on a new genetic code. So it's as if this hypothesis is true, the virus creates the entity of where it wants to live, but they can also alter it anytime it wants to.
Really?
That's kind of interesting, right?
And the ability to adapt. Yeah, that is really interesting.
And it just makes us adapt to whatever it wants to live in.
So the viruses are really in control.
The viruses might be really in control.
And we have them dormant inside of us at all times. And if they're not happy, they're going to release it. All of a sudden, I'm going to be a zombie or a werewolf.
Yeah.
I'm in for the latter.
Yeah, I'm doing for a little werewolf action.
And that's not even a government conspiracy.
No, that's really interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not scared of viruses, though.
That's pretty cool. It's like it's interesting to think about at the same time. I'm like, I'd rather think about butterflies or something.
Really? The darkest guy on our podcast wants to think about butterflies?
Well,
I don't believe you for a second.
I've just been diving into viruses way too much, and I'm like, I feel like I need a hot shower for like 5 hours. I just rinse myself because I don't want to get.
Well, I had the flu 2 years ago, and right now the flu still has killed more people this season than the coronavirus because more people have gotten it, not because it's more dangerous. But overall, the coronavirus does not scare me. I had the flu 2 years ago that killed a bunch of people in the country. It was really strong. It was just a typical flu, but it was a really strong one. Mm-hmm. And I get it. Like if you get a terrible flu and I was really feeble or really young or really old, I don't know. I could have died. Like, it was that intense. So for people out there who have the coronavirus, holy cow, I don't want that. Same time, I have zero fear. I don't like to live in a fear-based world, and right now there's so much fear. It's like Iran. It's a virus. It's a coronavirus. It's going to get you. It has a name. It sounds like a beer. You know, like it's like people just get way out of control with the fear factor. And I
think that's what the virus that's kind of the virus of these hoaxes spreading online is kind of like feeding off that fear.
Yeah, that's a mental virus for sure. And we definitely have that. That's why I thought the other theory was kind of interesting, that like in our human memory cells, we create something that's similar to a virus, like scientifically, not just, reading media.
Right, no, totally. Well, this leads me to something I think is actually a lot more scary, and they're not biological, they're digital. And I have a story about this virus called the Stuxnet virus that I want to share right after the break.
Cool.
All right, we're back, and I'm about to scare you. I don't want to, but it's going to scare you.
Do it. Scare me.
When we came very close to going to war with Iran this year after we precision bombed the general, I was more terrified than most people because I watched a documentary and did a bunch of research a few years ago about cyber warfare, and specifically something called the Stuxnet virus. Nuclear warfare is really scary. Human biological viruses are really scary. But what could potentially be bigger than both of those, though anyone could ruin the world, are cyber attacks. Are actually a lot more realistic right now and can happen a lot easier in a lot of senses.
This is what they say the future of warfare will be.
Cyber, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a whole cyber division now. All right, so this documentary that started this journey of fear was called 0 Days. You can find it all over the place. I don't think it's on Netflix anymore.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's a really well done documentary overall anyways. Has a lot of good interviews, shot well, put together well, blah, blah, blah. From a filmmaker standpoint, I love it. Starts with a quote that just kind of sums it all up. This guy on camera says, good and evil live close side by side. And what this is an example of is someone with good intentions creating something that ends up being used for evil, or could be used for evil.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the how and what. What is the Stuxnet virus? Well,
it's also... Tell us.
That's a virus. That's the name of it that was given by people who discovered the virus later who weren't associated with the people who created it, which I'll get to. The people who created it looked like it was the NSA, us, the U.S. government, and the Israelis in conjunction. There was other foreign governments involved, like England, but us and Israel. And it's important to know those two names because, in the end, one matters. So...
I don't know why I think that's funny.
I don't know if that was weird. Let me just write that time code down. I don't know what the fuck I was saying.
So the two major players are...
The two major players are the U.S. and Israel.
Got it.
So, let's start in the future a little bit. In 2010, the future of the story, a security company in Belarus discovered the virus. They were like, what is this thing? They looked at it and basically determined, not just them, but lots of people after the fact, that it is probably the world's most intricate malware ever created. It's 20 times larger than a normal virus. There's no bugs in the code whatsoever. It was spreading without anyone even having to do anything. It was in hundreds of thousands of computers worldwide, just laying dormant.
But somebody created it still.
Someone created it.
Okay.
Which I'll get to. It's kind of like this. The story is kind of fun if you kind of dance around a little bit. There's no protection against it, and it imitates and attacks anonymously. So
I
like
get stuck on it's fun if you dance, but
Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
So the first thing to know about this is the reason why the documentary is called 0 Days. I'll read what the definition of 0 Day is. 0 Day, or a day zero attack, is a term used to describe the threat of an unknown security vulnerability in a computer, software, or application for which either the patch has not been released or the application developers were unaware of or did not have sufficient time to address.
okay, yeah.
So when they started finding this virus and like, what the hell is this thing? They quickly started to realize it had to be created by a nation state. There's no one with the amount of money, time, and resource to put together the most complicated code of all time.
So the idea was that it'd be sitting dormant in thousands upon thousands of computers across the world.
And then they
And
just
then
press
at
a
some point
button.
they trigger it.
No. So
No?
at this,
Huh.
I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
It spread because the Israelis got too aggressive with it.
Okay.
It wasn't supposed to be everywhere. They updated the code
okay.
at some point, and it had a very specific reason why they used it, and I'll get to that in a second. So the first thing you got to know is the reason why they thought nation states were behind it, one, because it was amazingly complicated, but two, it just had things in it that you couldn't get unless you broke into like a high security facility and stole it. What they found in it were stolen digital certificates for Microsoft Windows operating systems.
Wow.
Which are really hard to get, and literally there was a place in Taiwan where they stole it from, apparently, and there was 2 buildings, locked rooms you can't get to that are completely secret. I don't understand the tech behind why that's important, but it was a hint right away that a nation state or someone obviously was involved.
Right, it's not someone just waltzing into a company and stealing shit. It's
Right.
like
Yeah.
some high-level spy shit.
Right.
Right.
What did it target? It targeted Siemens Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. I don't even know what that means.
Siemens?
Yeah, no, it
Yeah,
sounds...
they're a big tech company, yeah.
Tech company.
okay.
Yeah.
So what it targeted was critical
it.
infrastructure, healthcare, financial services,
It sounds
pump valves,
dirty, I know.
motors. It did. It sounded a little gross. So this thing was designed to attack industry, to attack a big industry in a sense. It gets more particular. So it was really picking on its target. It was really picky, and it probed computer systems. It was smart. It affected all these machines all over the world, and basically what it did was, and I'll get to who developed in a second, it was used and designed to mess with Iranian centrifuges that were doing uranium enrichment. And what this virus would do, in the first 5 places it was found was in Iran. When they traced it back, the virus had like a ledger in it that showed you all the computers it got on. They
Wow.
found it in Iran.
Handy.
Yeah, and now these centrifuges are separated by a wall. Like you can't just the virus can't just jump through the air. So they know that somebody on the inside had to take it on a USB drive when they were updating a system and put it on these systems. So there's a double agent involved. More evidence it's a nation
So
state.
how did it... So you said that this is like it got spread accidentally to a... Like, it sounded like shit got out of hand pretty quickly, the way it spread.
Pretty
It
quickly.
didn't mean it to
So
get
it's
that
supposed to
far.
only
No.
go to Iran.
So let's go to Iran. It shuts down these centrifuges, but like a 1/5 of them, Iranian scientists are getting fired because they can't figure out what the hell happened. It basically like either speeds it up or slows it down, and it's so smart that the computer systems that are monitoring it don't even pick up on it because it lays dormant for 13 days while it waits and kind of records everything that's happening. And then at the right moment when the centrifuges are full, it does something. It slows them down or turns it way up, and then the operating system seems like everything's normal. It's that complicated. So the
Wow.
operators didn't even know. And they were getting fired. They're like, what are you doing? Like, you don't even know what you're doing, scientist. So they let them go, which is just crazy. So eventually, this virus, it left no trace. So what this is proof that a virus can cause real-world damage. It can cause physical damage in the real world. These centrifuges would explode. They even ran a program where they tested it on like a balloon device where centrifuges were like filling up a balloon and it popped the balloon. Like these things, it's examples that a code can cause real-world damage and kill people potentially. Because if you're near one of these things when it explodes, you're dead.
Right.
Okay, so this is why it spread. So in 2010, it was working. By the way, this thing didn't really work. At the end of all this, it didn't slow down Iran. I'm not going to. The documentary goes into like the political atmosphere of why Israeli and America didn't want Iran to have centrifuges. And it goes into all the details of that. For this, I'm not going to go into that.
But just the fact that it was able to penetrate that level of
Security.
security is crazy.
No one's ever seen it before. It is so advanced. And this was 10 years ago. So what do we have today, people? So the Israelis had a bigger reason to fear Iran. Their government and their people seem to hate Iran more than we do. A very simplistic way of saying it. I don't mean to offend. And apparently, and by the way, each government has never confirmed or denied this has happened, but it's pretty much common knowledge that they did it together, that they pushed. The Israelis updated the code because they wanted to be more aggressive. It wasn't working because it wasn't really working. They were shutting down centrifuges, but Iran was still just building more and like getting more complex. So they didn't really stop them. So they got really aggressive about it. And that's when it went to hundreds of thousands of computers. So it started spreading by itself. Before, it was super specific and super dormant. And then all of a sudden, it just got more aggressive. It was just going to every computer it could and being everywhere.
How did it get to all the rest? I mean, you're talking all over the world.
All over the world.
Not just
It's all over the
Iran.
world, yeah. But it's not that scary because it was a very specific thing it was going for, right? This virus. So there's no real danger that it shut down our power grid, but it kind of does. And
It's
I'll get
funny
to that,
that
in a
idea.
second.
We talk about like how we live in a matrix. That whole thing, like we're living in a computer simulation, and just the similarities between how that's kind of. I mean, it was someone went in and physically did this, but how a virus kind of mutates and takes on other properties, and it either gets worse or better.
Right.
Where someone actually like did the same thing to this computer virus, and it also mutated and it spread fucking like wildfire all of a sudden.
Right, because
Right.
then it took on a life of its own.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back to that other article about, did the virus create our cellular structure? Like we physically created this virus.
Right.
But it already, if you think about it, it already existed in the system. We just brought it to light.
Ooh, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah, I mean, if we're
And then
controlling,
it
if this is
takes
a
on a life
matrix,
of its own.
a virus and a computer virus are the same thing. They're both
Right.
in the hologram. They're both code.
Yeah.
Right.
So people found it, and they started finding it around the world, and agencies got involved because they started shutting down computers, not just targeting the one specific thing, the Iranian centrifuges. And people started to find it. So this is the scary part. They found it. They started reverse engineering it. Russia, Iran, multiple countries have it. They reverse engineered it, and they figured it out. It can be used for anything. You could target it to shut down a power plant. You could target it to shut down a banking system, a water treatment plant, gas lines, whatever you wanted. And guess
Now
what?
everyone has it.
Guess what? Iran has it. And guess what? Iran fired warning shots at us years ago by messing with our banking system and a power plant. It's all in the documentary. Warning shots. They didn't really shut something off.
Like, you mean cyber warfare.
Cyber
Warning
warfare.
shots.
So what this is proof of, they made something to attack Iran because they didn't want them to have nukes. That's a whole different discussion whether they should or not. Iran found it, reversed it. Now the whole world has it. So anyone with a certain amount of budget and resources can shut down anyone's grid anytime they want. And the reason why I was terrified when we bombed Iran and they luckily only bombed our soldiers, because I don't think in a conventional warfare we would like whoop their ass. It'd be a lot of people would die, but we would dominate them. But they could shut down our grid, so that's a scary thing.
There would be a lot of death for sure.
A lot of death, but I'm not trying to say that's lightly, but I didn't want to go to war with them because what would happen? As soon as they lose, they have a couple agents in America, boom, the grid goes down, gas line goes down, the banking system goes down. They have the capability. Can we defend that to a certain degree? Yes. Are we the most advanced at that as the United States of America, the amount of money we have? But no, we're living in a scary world. I'm not scared about nukes. I'm scared about nukes on a very minor scale. What I'm scared of actually happening is this type of shit because it is real. It's not that... It's hard. I don't
Shutting off the grid all of a sudden.
Yeah, boom. You don't know who did it. It's super like this virus. You couldn't even tell it was there. Like it was amazing how complex it was.
When was this? What year?
In 2010 is when they found it. It was being developed in 2005.
Oh, so fairly recent.
Oh yeah, this is all. Yeah, imagine where we are at 10 years from now.
Yeah,
How
we don't
more
even know
advanced are
what we don't even know what they have now.
we? Exactly.
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
Either
I just
they've,
hope
like-
we're ahead of everybody.
So that brings us back to people living off the grid. Because if you're not part of the grid, then you can't be affected.
yes, which is interesting because I did find an article where a guy named Douglas Rushkoff, who is like a author who writes a lot of stuff about tech. So this article is on 10. It's called Survival of the Richest, and it's written by Douglas Rushkoff. It was a really fascinating article that I'll put the link on the Facebook page where the guy was supposed to show up and give a speech to a bunch of like rich people about the future and technology and whatever else he's into. And instead it was just 5 guys who were very rich. 5 guys. It was 5 guys. He won't point to say that for some reason. And it was
Like
all
the burger chain.
Yeah. You know what? No. What? Yes.
No, sorry. Throwing a spanner in the works there.
No, it was good. I was like, what? Yes, maybe. I don't know.
5 billionaires. All right. Okay.
So 5 guys who are super rich, and they quickly started asking questions about like, tell me about blockchain. Is it Ether or Bitcoin? Should I buy? What's this? What's that? And they quickly got to a point where they were like, okay, we think an event's going to happen that's going to it's going to cause worldwide catastrophe. They didn't specifically say what it was. I think it's more cyber they're probably getting at, or it's a virus like the coronavirus, or it's nuclear warfare, or whatever it is. I think they're more speaking that something like, I don't know, horrible could happen online. or the grid, and all they were concerned about was how do you keep your security forces on your side when the entire world gets shut down? And they were throwing out things like, do you put a collar on them? Do you only have the codes for the food, so they have to go through you to get the food?